James done shut the door, so maybe it's time to get
You
started.
wanna hold it down, we're trying to talk here.
We do have some good news. Most of you guys already know that John and them did have a baby. Just today.
Yes, it is.
And
His name's JJ.
John Joseph Terry,
John Joe.
11:34 a.m.
Junior.
And it was 7 pounds 12 ounces, 19 and a half inches long. So they're all happy, all smiles. John posted a picture on Facebook, and you can tell he was all happy.
Well, I
I'm
didn't,
sure they all are.
I said between 2 and 3, I didn't.
Well, that picture was taken around 2.
Yeah, he I mean, the
guess.
time he put was 11:34 a.m., so I'm guessing that might have been the time it was born today. That's what he posted on the deal, so. So anyway, it's great for them, you know, blessed family, have a new healthy child, and of course, they got good grandparents and good parents to lead them to a good life with the Lord, so that's even more
Amen.
amazing. Awesome.
And now they got a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl, they'll probably be fighting like cats and dogs. In the
Oh,
rest of
yeah,
the
couple of
year.
years, they'll be.
Yep, Lana, she'll be straightening him out, telling him, showing him the ropes, everything. But it has been a while since I've been here, just due to work, my work schedule. I've been kind of out about the last month, almost actually. And
I'll talk to you about that.
yeah, I need to make sure I put work aside at least for an hour, for sure.
Where we at, man?
Sometimes we get caught up in things, and we let it kind of dictate our life and our lifestyle sometimes. It's real easy to do, especially when you got customers calling you and wanting this and wanting that, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, but there's a lot of things that we got to make sure we keep as priorities for sure. I need to make sure that I keep this as a priority for me.
Good job.
But tonight we're in Exodus 5, and before we get started in this, I want to ask if there's any prayer requests or anything tonight. Go ahead, Ms. Patrick.
Margaret, well, Shannon Hull and his wife Margaret, he had a brain surgery today. He had cancer of the brain 5 years ago, and he was in remission, but now they found something. But now they're thinking it was just some kind of, not cancer maybe, but I don't know for sure, but that's what it kind of looked like,
Yeah.
that she's trying to say.
Okay.
Scar tissue.
Like scar tissue and stuff.
Mhm.
That was Shannon Hall.
Hull, Hull, and Margaret, his wife.
Anybody else?
Lewis Boyd, I think I've pretty well done talked to everybody about it. He's on hospice here.
Y'all keep them in your prayers for sure. Usually in hospice situations, it usually don't turn out real good.
I have an ex, brother-in-law, died, Steve Malone, he died Monday.
Steve, really?
Keep sharing.
Oh, I'll just keep sharing the prayers. Anybody else? Ms. Janice?
I don't know if there's anybody in here that knows what Deborah Powell, do you know her, what her mother's name is? I don't know, it's Deborah Ryder, and her mother was in a real bad car accident. I don't remember what day, was
It
it
was the
last
one on
Sunday? wasn't it?
59.
Yeah, it was on
here.
Oh, on 59,
And,
that's, okay.
Yeah.
The other, I think both of them were hurt real bad, but she's having to have a
She had her leg amputated.
amputated, she had a bunch of broken bones, her
Right.
spleen was damaged, she just been
Bad
in real critical,
care.
yeah.
Okay,
And I don't know her name, I know
Deborah.
Deborah, and that's all I know, but
Okay.
it's Deborah Ryder's mother.
Anybody else?
Jonathan Tyson, that's Crimson Cup's husband. He has brain cancer, and he's going down to MD Anderson. He has a little boy at the elementary school.
How old is he?
Oh gosh, 34?
Okay, so he's a young
35?
guy.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, well, I'm gonna lift these guys up in prayer real quick and get started in our study. Lord, we just come to you tonight just thanking you and praising you, Lord, for us to be able to come to your house, Lord, to hear your word, Lord, to be able to learn your word, Lord, and just be able to live by your word, Lord. We pray for all those tonight that's been lifted up, Lord. We just pray for blessings and peace to be upon each one of them, Lord. We just pray that you lift your healing hands upon them, Lord. You know their needs better than we do, Lord. We have faith in you, Lord. You are the great physician. We know anything we ask can be done if it's your will, Lord. We just pray you just be with them, Lord. Just lift them up, Lord. And we pray for our church here. We just pray for blessings upon each one of us, Lord. We pray for those that couldn't make it tonight, Lord. Just be with them. Lord, we just pray for safe travels on the way home with all this fog and stuff. But Lord, we also just lift up Jessica and John and the new baby. We just pray for blessings upon them as well, being parents, Lord, and getting everything organized and kind of straightened out with having two youngsters. Lord, we just pray for all those that's any unspoken requests tonight, Lord. And we just pray that you know who they are and their needs also, Lord. Lord, we love you so much. We thank you and give you all the praise and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tonight we're in Exodus 5, and just kind of a prelude. We're talking about Moses and Aaron, and go back a couple of chapters. We had the burning bush experience where the Lord actually spoke to Moses. You know, every time I think about that, I mean, you know, just standing on holy ground, I mean, that stuff there just gives me chills. Just, and it don't, I mean, anytime I even think about it, there was an old cartoon that come out in Disney, and even the voice in that cartoon, every time I would hear that when Blake Graves was a young kid, it would just give me chill bumps. It's like the Lord just, you know, speaking, and just the awesome, the power you can just imagine in your mind of him, his voice raising up and down as he's speaking and stuff, as he's trying to explain to Moses of who he is and what he's going to do and how he's going to use him. I just think that's awesome. And for Moses, you know, too, is a guy that, you know, we know that he's not a good speaker, and he has these qualifications in his mind that he's not good enough to go out and do what he's been asked to do. But we know for a fact that all of us, if God asks us to do something, that means that there is a way for you to do it. And we're going to go ahead.
I was looking up this week, I just found it neat that he had rods, you know, and he turned to a snake, and Brother Gary talked about him being scared of it. And so I was just studying that a little bit, you know, and wondering why God would use a stick basically like that, you know, and David, he used an old raggedy slingshot, and
Right.
Samson, he used a jawbone. In 2 Chronicles, a guy named Shingar had an ox bow, which is just a cattle prod, and he went out and killed 600 enemy with it, and they made him king over it, you know, and it sharpened one end. And I've just been thinking about it all week, and it's like you said, I think God uses, that's all these guys had.
That's right.
And he made big, huge weapons out of just,
Right.
you know, one guy was a farmer, herded ox, and that's all
I think
he
he
had was a
related
sharp
those.
stick.
I think he related those things that he used because that's something that they could relate to.
Yeah.
You know, when you take a shepherd.
It's really their only,
Yeah.
that's all they had.
You take a shepherd with a staff. I mean, that was everything to him. You know, that stick was used to ward off wolves and all these snakes and everything else. And also, if somebody came up, probably knock them in the side of the head with it. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, that was used as that was something big to them. So, like I said, I think in all those situations, it was something they were familiar with, and a great work was performed by those, I guess you'd call ordinary tools that they used that they could relate to. So I thought, you know, like you say, I think it's pretty amazing. You
Yeah,
know?
because I know I'm guilty of always going, well, wait till the job changes, I'll get more involved. Or, you know, and
Right.
you got these excuses and stuff, and really God just takes whatever you got.
Exactly, and you think about that too.
Maybe,
You think,
he maybe want me to whoop people with a crescent wrench, I don't know.
you never know.
That's pretty good too.
And the thing about it is, if you look at it in that sense too, you think about the ordinary tools. Well, look at the ordinary people that he used
That's right.
too. I mean, it kind of worked both ways, so it's pretty cool scenario there for sure. But so we know Moses. You know, you just think about him. Just kind of put your mindset where he's at right now. He's on high. The Lord's spoken to him. He's heard his voice. He goes and tells Aaron all this stuff, and now his brother's pumped up. And he looks in this crowds of all of his people that he's looking at after the Lord done spoke to him and saying, hey man, we're fixing to be free. So that's something big in somebody's mind. Whenever they're out there on the workforce, basically, and they seeing all their slaves out there, all their brothers, and all their sisters out there, and they're out there working, and they see a light of something that's gonna set them apart away from where they are. So that's huge to them right now. And, you know, you put yourself in your position when we get into this, you know, I guess you could say as an average man, doing average work like you would day in, day out, the Lord comes speaks to you, and then you look across the field over there and you see this huge temple, all this stuff, Pharaoh, this man, this big guy, and you're sitting there thinking, how am I gonna get to him? You know, so there's a process there. So we'll start in chapter 5, if I can have somebody read verses 1 through 5.
And afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. And they said, The God of the Hebrews hath met with us, let us go. We pray thee 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Egypt said unto them, Wherefore do ye, Moses and Aaron, let the people from their work get you unto your burdens? And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and ye make them rest from their burdens.
All right, so what was Moses and Aaron's request up front?
First off, they won't let them go so they can have a feast.
That's right. I mean, do you think this was something that was reasonable, a question to ask Pharaoh? I mean, in that time, do you think it was a reasonable question?
Was it reasonable?
Yeah, reasonable. I mean, you think this was a question that somebody would go ask Pharaoh if you was a slave?
I mean, it sounds reasonable to us, but you gotta,
Right.
you know, Pharaohs thought that they were gods,
Exactly.
practically, so
Mhm.
I don't imagine it went over too well. Well, I know it didn't.
Do y'all think he might have been offended by them even asking the question if they could let them go for 3 days to the wilderness? Maybe, Pharaoh?
The way he answered, it, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And right offhand, what the Lord had told Moses was gonna happen, was happening.
Happening. Right.
He's already hardened.
He's already starting to get hard, ain't he? Already right off the bat, you know?
I imagine he's still a little fearful, because he even says there's many of them. He's still thinking, boy, I got a herd of bees out there, I don't wanna, they could take me over, you know.
Don't let them have any slack because they're allowed to turn on them.
That's right, that's exactly right.
Well, like it says in verse 2, it says, who is the Lord? You know, what Pharaoh asked. Whenever he said this, what do y'all think he meant by that? Whenever he asked the question, who is the Lord?
I think what he's saying is, who is this Lord that you think is greater than I am?
Exactly. Because he already, like you just said, he already considers himself like a God almost. I mean, he's got all the power. He's telling all these people what to do, how to do it, when to do it. He's got his slaves, he's got his overseers, he's got his foreman out there doing the job, getting things done. Here he is over eating grapes and drinking the best wine and not having to sweat a tear hardly. But all he's got to do is just say, well, who is this God that they're talking about? Who is Lord? In my mind, I'm thinking that he's saying, I'm Lord. So who are you to say that, who is this Lord? So,
Yeah, prove to me that somebody more important than I am,
exactly. And it says on down, if you read on down, and it says, in verse 2, it says, I do not know the Lord. So if you think about it in that aspect right there, he don't have a clue who God is, And that's basically going to be his big downfall. His heart's already starting to get hard because he don't even really want to know who he is. He just said, I don't know him. But he didn't ask to say, tell me more about who he is. He just went straight off into a tangent pretty much after this deal here. So in verse 3 it says that they explained to him the God they were talking about. It says the God of the Hebrews has met with us, please let us go on a 3 days journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Otherwise, he will fall upon us as with pestilence or with the sword. So basically right then, Moses basically separates them from Pharaoh because they don't know Pharaoh don't know their God. So he says, this is my God, not your God. So that you take it in that translation, there's separation there right now, you know.
I said last week, I read where they had 3,000 gods at this time.
Right.
So
They had a lot of gods.
how would you even keep up with
Yeah, how would you say, I don't know your God,
Yeah.
if you got 3,000 of them, you know?
Right.
But you know, too, he's thinking of the Israelites as slaves. So he don't, you know, he's thinking, well, their God is not even in where my gods are, you know what I'm saying? He don't even add up to my gods, you know, that's probably what he's thinking. Yeah, it says here that Pharaoh was familiar with many gods. Egypt was filled with them, but he had never heard the God of Israel. Pharaoh assumed that the God of the Hebrew slaves couldn't be very powerful at first. Pharaoh was not all worried about Moses' message, for he had not yet seen any evidence of the Lord's power. So it was just words to him, basically.
I wondered, with the Hebrew children being there, as many as there were, if he hadn't already heard about the God, but he is denying the Lord.
Right.
I mean, you'd think that somewhere along the line,
That he
you
would
pick
get,
up on, okay, this God that they're worshiping, what's he got, you know?
yeah.
Be inquisitive about it and know their God, but he's basically saying, yeah,
Exactly. Well, I think too,
I'm a head hook and bull, and
yeah, and I may be completely wrong in what I'm fixing to say, but I think too that, you know, there was a process for them to get to speak to Pharaoh to begin with. I mean, they just didn't go say, hey, Pharaoh, we got something we want to tell you. I'm sure there was an order that he had to go through to get to this point where he could actually speak.
they had to follow, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, and with him being in the position that he was in Pharaoh, and they talk about, you know, let my people go. I mean, that was a big thing to ask Pharaoh in front of probably who all was out there, sitting out there while he was, you know, talking to them. So, you know, Pharaoh too probably had an ego type thing where he had to, hey, I'm powerful. I'm going to shut this thing down right now before we get too far ahead, and then all these other people out here may start raising questions about other gods and their God and this kind of thing, so I'm just going to squash it now. That might have been a thought. I mean, it's just me thinking, I don't know for a fact. But in verse 4, it says, but the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you draw the people away from their work? Get back to your labors. So why do you think that he didn't want them to go worship in the wilderness for the 3 days?
You go feed the cows.
Exactly. I mean, these were workers. He was using them to do things that he wanted to get done in his country. So if he let them go off for 3 days to do something, well, that's 3 days of lost labor he's going to have. I mean, he's basically running this thing, I guess you say, kind of like a business. You know, you got employees come in here and say, hey, I want off 3 days. Well, you're there thinking, I got this job going on. We can't do that, you know.
Well, you know, you wouldn't want 3 million slaves. If I had 3 million slaves, I wouldn't want them to get any kind of boost. You know, I want to keep them down and out, doing their work. I wouldn't want them to start getting pride in something or,
Right.
I mean, I'm trying to think like a taskmaster, but
Yeah, you think about it like that, you think, well, if he gives them 3 days off here,
you don't want to be organized.
you know, in 6 months, they want to work
Yeah.
a month off. I mean, you know, what's going to
Or
happen
want
here.
a day off all the time.
Yeah.
Weekends or
Exactly.
something.
And like you said, you know, he don't know this God, so he don't know anything about how they're supposed to worship him and that kind of thing too. So we know that Pharaoh turned his back around on them and said, you know, why are you letting them neglect the work? Do you think that he might have thought that they were trying to cause like a rebellion maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, y'all think he might have been thinking, hey, they could cause a rebellion with that many people out there, 3 million slaves out here in our country. He looking at numbers and looking at numbers of his people. Yeah, he's thinking, hey, they get all tied up together here, you know, God riles them up, and then I may have a bigger problem here than what I can handle. So that might be another reason why he said, I don't want this to happen, you know. But he said in verse 5 that the people of the land were numerous, okay? So we know there were a lot of them, like you said, Troy. So that could have put a lot of thought in his head of rebellion and the consequences of two guys filling their heads with nonsense. So we have to remember in verse 2 that Pharaoh said that he did not know the Lord. That's the big key we have to remember from right now all the way to the end of basically his reign. Okay?
We'll get introduced to him.
He's gonna get introduced to him, that's right. All right, someone read verses 6 through 9.
So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, You shall no longer give the people straw to make brick as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and you shall lay on them the quota of bricks which they made before. You shall not reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry out, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let more work be laid on the men, that they may labor in it, and let them not regard false words.
Okay. So after the request had been made, what did Pharaoh do?
Put more workload on them.
He put a lot more work on, didn't he? So all of a sudden, the request that Moses and Aaron had, thinking they was going to get these 3 days off and all the people's going to be all joyous and happy, all of a sudden it kind of turned south on them. So in their mind, they're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, look what we done. So he made it a lot harder for the slaves. And then in verse 9 it said, let the labor be heavier on the men and let them work at it so they will pay no attention to false words. So he wanted their head down to the grindstone. He thought that they were out just having all this extra time to conjure up something so they can go have all this spare time to spend with their God. So Pharaoh, basically what he done was, he just tightened everything up big time.
Control.
Exactly. He's like, we're finna control the time, we're gonna control their extra work hours and labor they gotta put in, and we're gonna take this foolishness out of them of thinking that they can ask me for something from a God that I don't even know who he is. So he's fixing to tighten it down, So somebody can read verses 10 through 14.
I'll read it. So the overseers and foremen of the people went out and said to them, This is what Pharaoh says, I am not giving you straw. Go get straw yourselves wherever you can find it, but there will be no reduction at all in your workload. So the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The overseers insisted, Finish your assigned work each day, just as you did when straw was provided. Then the Israelite foremen who Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over the people were beaten and asked, Why haven't you finished making your prescribed number of bricks yesterday or today as you did before?
Okay. So we got the taskmasters or the overseers basically now. And then we got the foremen. So who do you think that the overseers were? I mean, as far as heritage.
Well, the taskmasters were the Egyptians. The
Exactly.
officers was the ones that, they was Hebrews.
Exactly. So we got the Egyptians overseeing the work that Pharaoh has actually put out there on them, okay? And then you got the foremen, which were Hebrew, which could relate to the people and make them spur on to get things going. So you had the overseers, and then you had the foremen. And so it's kind of like I said earlier, it's kind of like they're running a business here. You got the guy at the top, he's got the plan. You got the guy here that's making sure these other guys are getting the plan done, the workload. So, verse 14. In verse 14 it says, More of the foremen of the sons of Israel whom Pharaoh's taskmaster had set over them were beaten and were asked, Why have you not completed your required amount, either yesterday or today, in making brick as previously? So the foremen, they went. The foremen were the ones that was actually beaten. The overseers, which were the Egyptians, they beat the foremen. Okay. And so he was making a point there of showing the slaves, look, you're not producing, so this guy here's going to take a beating. So I want you to see this, because y'all might be next if y'all don't get this straw built, and y'all don't double up on your duties like you're supposed to. And because you got to think about the task of either asked to build the same quota they were before without the straw. So that doubled the workload. So they got to go out and find the straw and build a brick now. So it's a lot of stress here involved. So I'm sure the slaves themselves were probably thinking, man, you know, what have they done? You know, here we are working twice as hard now. And then my good old buddy foreman over here, he's getting whooped because I ain't doing the job, you know, and I'm trying to. And so it's probably a lot of stress, the stressful situation everybody's starting to get into.
But it's a pretty smart move, and I think Satan uses that today, right?
Oh, I think
Something
so.
to put something between you and God and
Right.
get you bogged down in it.
Well, how many of you guys in this room has asked, prayed about something, and it's went the opposite direction? And you're like, man, you know, but then maybe you start seeing the light at the end, and you realize now, I know why I had to go through that harder work or that harder time, because now I see where I've changed now. The Lord's changed me, my mindset, or whatever the situation may be. It usually ends up being better for what the Lord had planned, even though that's not exactly the way we would have navigated through the situation. But we got to be faithful, you know. We got to understand that the Lord is in control. And we got to understand that He has a task for all of us to do. And the task is not always going to be easy. I mean, sometimes the workload's going to be doubled down on us. Sometimes He's going to say, hey, go get the straw. You know, you get the clay, and you stomp it, and you mix it together, and you make the brick. Sometimes we have to do it all, you know. So we have to remember that even though sometimes as being Christians that things maybe get hard, the Lord never said it's going to be easy. We know that for a fact. But we got to understand that God has a plan. As long as we listen to Him and we follow His plan through, no matter the hard times, that there is something down here waiting for us. We got to just make sure we keep focused. But we also got to remember in this situation right here, you know, God spoke to Aaron and Moses. He didn't speak to all them slaves. They don't have a clue what's going on, really. But we know in the previous chapter that He did kind of explain to them, and they kind of gathered up what they had talked about. So they kind of got an understanding of what's going on and what the Lord had told Moses and Aaron, but yet the direct words was to Moses. So they don't understand the gist of His words yet, I don't think, you know. So they're all in turmoil. All right, in 15 it says, then the foreman of the sons came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, why do you deal this way with the servants? So they're complaining now why they're put all this workload onto the servants. Y'all got any questions so far? We've covered some stuff pretty quick through 15. And I think I've talked way more than what I should have already, because y'all ain't talking much.
He was talking about, Randy, about the people, Moses and Aaron knew what was gonna happen, but the people were not that aware of it. Back in chapter 4, verse 21, the Lord told Moses that I will harden his heart that he shall not let the people go.
Right.
So they knew what was gonna happen, but the Hebrew children, they're lost what in the world's going on.
Right.
Well, can we talk about that just a minute?
Yeah.
If y'all don't mind. I'm trying to visualize or understand why the Lord would harden His heart and then other people try to get relieved from Him. Look like He would have softened His heart. That's just me thinking, and I'm trying to see I know what the end bottom line is.
Yeah.
But I suppose this is just another trial for God and these people to see if they'll stay with Him until.
Yeah.
But that part right there, it'd be like, I'm gonna make him so mean you ain't gonna be able to stand it, but you go tell him anyway. And, you know, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see where Moses and Aaron must have been scared of their shadow, more or less. even though they knew what was going on, you're talking about all those people that just knew something is going wrong, and Moses and Aaron has caused it, because Pharaoh has doubled our work and caused us misery. I can just see all that coming, but that comes back to my mind, well, why did the Lord soften Pharaoh's heart? And for that, it's a good understanding, it's a good note to
I
understand.
think the Lord, I think he knew Pharaoh's heart. I think he knew. He said that I did not know, I don't know your God. I think he knew for right then that the Lord probably already knew that he wasn't gonna ever wanna know who he was. But even though we know that by the end of this Exodus here, that he knows who he is, but he still don't comply to anything that the Lord's asked him to do.
I kinda think he did it for the Hebrews myself.
Yeah,
Well, that's,
You know,
I think so.
we just read over that so fast, how they've been there for
We do,
400
yeah.
years. This ain't going to your First Baptist Church and gathering people up. This be like going to New York and start gathering people up. They've heard about God. They've been raised with certain rules and regs, but they got 3,000 other gods that's been introduced to them.
Yeah,
I mean, these ain't just, they thugs, I'm telling you.
yeah.
And God's got to show them how strong He is. That's my opinion on it.
And I think it
I don't
takes
think it
time.
really has much to do with the Egyptians at all. I don't
Yeah.
think at this point God too much cares about the Egyptians.
Right.
Well, I think it's the Egyptians too, but you're right on that, because later on, when you get into the plagues that he brings, the 10 plagues that he brings down, every one of them has something to do with an Egyptian god. And he's telling the Egyptians as well as the Hebrews, who, like you say, have started worshiping the Egyptian gods, that he's telling them, I am God.
I am the God.
There is no other God before me. And in order to do that, he had to create the situation where they're going to listen. And, we get in those situations a lot of times where we have to be knocked back a couple of steps in order to where we will listen. And my opinion, this is just me, my opinion, that's the way I think, what's what I think God is doing here by hardening Pharaoh's heart. He is creating the situation where they're going to listen to me and they're going to realize I am God. There is no other God but me.
we talked about this in Sunday school class several weeks ago, and the point was brought up, at least I said, you know what jumps out at me? That all the problems that the Hebrews, the Israelites, God's people, all the problems that they had, God didn't remove the problems and let them go on about their business, but he showed them a way to get victory over it. He always showed them there's some way to win this battle if you'll listen to me. And that jumps out at me again about this, that's probably the early teachings of, if you'll listen to me, if you'll march around this wall 7 times, it'll fall down. Not 6 times. Just do what I tell you and it'll work out. And I'm sure that's what he told Moses and Aaron. Get these people to do what I say do and it'll all work out. Even though it didn't look like anything was going to work out, it was just getting worse and worse and worse all the time. The 10 plagues is just mind-boggling to me how that's...
How it all pans out on the end.
Right. I didn't mean to get ahead of you.
No, you good. But, like I say, I think too, you think about Pharaoh's position. He don't know who God is. So most of these Egyptians don't know who God is either. So,
See,
like Gary.
but I disagree with you, but I love you.
What?
I think it's 100% for the Hebrew, because the Egyptians is represented as the world, and he's pulling his people out of the world. After he drowns them here in the Red Sea, we go on with the Hebrews. We don't even hear about the Egyptians no more. None of them converts over and changes over to godly ways that we know of. They realize what he is. I think it's strictly for his people to get them back in touch with the true God and say, this is my rules, this is how you're going to follow me. And
Right.
that's what I think. I don't think God's too interested in the Egyptians myself. Brother, he hardens their heart to show the Hebrews something. His people.
Right. He definitely
He
showed.
said earlier, my only son, the Hebrew nation,
Hebrew
the
nation.
Israel nation.
Anybody else got anything on it?
Let me, this is not altogether to deal with that, but I learned today that even in Iran, they're having a revival, they're having a Christian movement in Iran as we speak. There's people there accepting Jesus and accepting the true Christianity. So I'm just saying that to say that even the Egyptians could possibly have came around. To
But
this-
they're not,
to-
they don't have Christ yet.
Right.
So it's not introduced to the whole world. The only reason we can be saved right now is because they turned us down. They turned
Exactly,
Jesus down.
exactly.
Or we would be locked out.
The Gentiles. Right.
But anyway, no matter how hard a country seems to be, and I thought Iran was just a mortal enemy. They're just absolutely heathens, thugs, murderers, and whatever. But now, see, where there's a movement going on, of course, they'll probably kill them all. They probably will kill all of them that say they're Christians, but still, that they got that part done. They're just getting a shorter time to see Jesus. And it's not it's mind-boggling to me, it's earth-shattering that these heathen nations the Lord is working in them. You know, they don't have preachers and evangelists walking up and down their streets and preaching the gospel. And those people are under threat of death.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you
You
mentioned
mentioned the name of
right.
Jesus. I mean, yeah, you can.
But that
you
makes
got
me
that.
think that this deal with the Egyptians, maybe it was possible they could have even been brought to, but it's not. I agree with you. It's about the Hebrews.
Troy could be right. He may not have been interested in the Egyptians. I don't know. It's
Well,
That's
I think
just
that,
mine.
yeah, I think too that, you gotta remember, God is God, the only God. Says here they had 3,000 gods, but
Yeah.
who are they? This one God, So, till you think about it in that perspective, you think that, hey, I'm fixing to prove myself of who the real God is through all this. And like Gary said also about the plagues, I mean, they are significant to one of their gods of why they were attacked in a certain ways.
every
Of course.
single one of them had something to do with the Egyptians.
So I think he was proving points to even their gods being weaker than him by even do with the plagues when we get into that later on down the road. But whether they, like you said, I think their hearts were hardened, of course, and then they probably had no inclination of ever wanting to go back to another God. But the Hebrews, through this whole trial and these tribulations they're going to go through by obeying the Lord and what's going on through Exodus here, they're going to grow into a relationship with the Lord. They're going to find out who He is, even through trials and tribulations. And just like we do, as Christians ourselves.
It's going to take quite a while, later on when they get into, it's actually Saudi Arabia, and what today is known as Saudi Arabia. They get to the Mount of God. Moses go up, and God tells them to have Israel come up to a certain point. There's a ledge there, so they can hear what He's saying. And I don't want to get ahead of everybody here, but at that point, they hear God. The whole nation of Israel can hear God's word. But what happens afterwards?
They didn't want to hear it anymore after they heard it, did they?
They did not want to hear Him anymore. They went to Moses and said, "You go to God and talk to God, and you come tell us what's going on. We don't want to do it," And that's what started all the high priests and everything. And they had the chance where all they had to do was go. God has always wanted to talk straight to you, but Israel rejected it. And so they went to the high priest, and ever since then, up until Jesus, everybody had to go through the high priest in order to approach God. Have the high priest approach God, I should say. But, even with what he did in Egypt, they, it took, like they say, you know, it took a few days to get Israel out of Egypt. It took 40 years to get Egypt out of Israel. Because that's a lot of the other reason why that generation did not leave the,
Yeah,
the
we got to
wilderness.
remember when we read this, just like Troy said earlier, this is a span of time here. I mean, it's not an overnight deal.
No,
I mean, we can go through this and read this pretty quick and go, man, it's like that fast. If we read it, these things happen, but that's not the way it worked. I mean, there was time in these readings here, for sure. And just like Gary said, you know, we know for a fact there was 40 years in the desert running around. So, I mean, this is a long period of time here that they was going through things and then asking why are we out here, you know. So we'll get into all that later on down the road. But let's go back to 15:21. Did we just read 15 through 21?
No, we haven't.
Okay. All right, can I have somebody read 15 through 21?
I'll do it. Then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried unto Pharaoh, saying, Wherefore dealest thou thus with thy servants? There is no straw given unto thy servants, and they say to us, Make brick. And behold, thy servants are beaten, but the fault is in thine own people. But he said, Ye are idle, ye are idle. Therefore ye say, Let us go and do sacrifice to the Lord. Go therefore now and work, for there shall no straw be given you, yet shall ye deliver the tale of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel did see that they were in evil case. After it was said, Ye shall not diminish aught from your bricks of your daily task. And they met Moses and Aaron, who stood in the way as they came forth from Pharaoh. To 21.
Yes, sir.
And they said unto them, The Lord look upon you and judge, because ye have made our savor to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us.
All right, now we get back into the foremans and the people crying and asking why this and why that. So now it went from this work for a little while, and they're realizing they can't do this. People's getting beat and stuff like that, so there's a lot of worry and fear in their eyes now. Like, man, we can't be able to keep doing this. We can't meet quotas. We're getting people getting beat up over here. So what's going to happen next? You know, they're going to start killing us off, or what are they going to do? But with them pleading even, you know, that this can't be done, what happened? With no results. So they're speaking to them. They said, no, you are lazy, very lazy. Therefore, let us go and sacrifice the Lord. So go now and work, for you will be given no straw. Yeah, you must deliver the quota of bricks. So no matter what you cry about, no matter how you don't think this is going to happen, your quota is your quota. Get it done. That's basically what he tells them. So then, in 19, what do they do in verse 19? They were in trouble. They saw that they were in trouble for sure. So what did they do in 20? Excuse me.
They go to Moses.
Went to Moses and Aaron, and they were waiting for them.
Blamed them, they were upset with them.
Yeah, they were upset. They said to them, May the Lord look upon you and judge you, for you have made us odious in Pharaoh's sight, and in the sight of the servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us. So they felt very, very low at this point. They felt like they had no control, no say-so. I realized they couldn't meet the quotas already. They was already breaking their backs trying to get this done. And it wasn't happening. So now they see no assurance in sight that they're going to have any type of relief. So now they know their days are getting hard, for sure.
Instead of things getting better, it was just getting worse.
Getting worse, that's right, yes ma'am. And sometimes, like I said earlier, you know, I've had people that's come up and talk to me about their walk with the Lord. And there's been situations where it just seemed like one thing after another. I mean, just one bad thing, and then another bad thing, and another bad thing, and another bad thing. It just always happens, you know, it's just something always going. I had a guy talk to me one time that was actually at work. He said, man, it's just ever since I've opened up the Bible and started reading the Bible, it just seems like stuff's just been going wrong, you know. And then I went to church, and got saved and things got worse. You know, it gets worse and worse. It didn't get better like everybody thinks it's gonna get better because you got the Lord on your side. You know, and he's trying to confide in me and he want me to give an answer why. And there, I don't have an answer of why it's gotten hard for him. You know, the Lord has different ways of showing different people the light, how to get to and from. And some people take the wrong paths, the hard path, and some paths are just harder than others. There's just no way if ands or buts about it. But I talked to him, I said, this is something I told my youth kids. We accept the Lord Jesus. We accept the cross. We're marked. We have that cross. We wear the cross like he does, basically. I mean, we didn't get crucified like him, but basically, we died to the world. So the world is still going to come after us. The way I look at it is the devil, he sees that cross on us. It's a mark to him. We're set apart from the world now. Okay? We're marked. So it's kind of like an X. When he sees the X on you, he sees something different from somebody else. So, boom, there it is. Well, he could make things hard for you. That's just a little scenario that I told the youth group. And, it's like I told them before about football. I used to play football growing up, was that, we always studied film on the top players of the team. We didn't study for people that sat on the sidelines because they wasn't even in the game. We were studying for people that was on the field playing, people that was going to touch the ball. Or this bad defensive guy that just always knew where the ball was at. We had to keep him away from the ball if he was on offense. So we studied for those people. Well, you take a look at that and think about it, that as a devil, he kind of does the same thing. He's like, well, they're on the sidelines over here. They're not even in the game. Well, he's going to go toward the people that's in the game, which is the Christians out on the field doing the work. So sometimes that we as Christians, the way I look at it and see it is that sometimes the more work we try to do, sometimes the more red flag and stuff we run up into, because the devil, he tries to put stuff in our paths. So, but we know if we stay consistent with the game call, like they play, we just stay consistent with the run, the plan, the play, that we're going to eventually score the touchdown.
And I think the Lord tests us like that as well.
He does, yeah.
I mean, Jesus just got through feeding tons of people with a couple of fish, and he tells them, let us go to the other side of this sea here, and they get in the boat and they're in God's will. They're following him. They're doing exactly what he said do. And a big storm comes and he walks out there. He did the same thing and we're sleeping on a pillow. He said, let us go the other side, and they're in God's will. They're doing just what he told him. And a big storm comes, they think they're going to blow away. So I don't know. I mean, I know Satan does all of this, but I think God gives us a little test every now and then to say, where exactly are you?
Yeah,
you just seen me feed thousands of people with 2 fish, and
like you say,
think I'm going to let you drown in a boat.
I mean, if everything was easy,
Right.
sometimes we got to work through difficulties. That's where faith comes in.
He'll show you a way to get through it if you let him.
Yeah, when we go through hard times, I think building faith, Lord won't say where you are with your faith. You gonna trust in me through this?
Yeah.
Or are you gonna take off and run and just say, I don't know about all that?
I'll do it my way.
Yeah, we're human. We're easy to go our way.
I guess if we were smart enough, when Jesus was laying on the pillow there and a big storm come up, we'd have just laid down there with him, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever?
He wasn't worried, But it's hard for us humans to think like that.
Have you ever faced a situation where you absolutely did not know how you were going to accomplish it or get through it or whatever?
Sure.
But you said, I'm going to get it done one way or the other, and you got through it and you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. How did you feel about yourself?
Sure.
You gained that confidence. And this is what I believe God is doing to us. He is putting these tasks for you to do in order to train you and teach you to rely on me, and everything will be okay. We will get you there if you will have the confidence in me. And that's the way I feel about what he. Every time he throws something in front of me, I say, God, why do we have to do this again? But You know, but,
I think that's exactly what he's doing
yeah,
to these Hebrews.
I think so too. Yeah, I think he's testing them. I think he's proving who he is. He's breaking them down. He's getting them down where all they have to do is to rely on him. I think that's what he's doing out here himself.
How much faith in him would they have had if he'd have made it easy for Pharaoh said, y'all go?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's like working for something, you know, if somebody gives you a brand new truck, you get a scratch on it, you're like, it's just a scratch. If you go over and you work 44 hours a week for that truck, you know, like me, when I grew up, I bought a bicycle by picking up cans on the side of the road. It took a long time. I had a bicycle place up on New Boston Road. He let me put it on layaway. Well, I picked up cans. I go down and put cans in, sell my cans, and pay $15 a month on it till I got it paid off. Well, I finally got where I had, like, I think I owed $40 on it. Well, he gave me the bike one day. I went up there to pay for it. And I was just like, couldn't believe he gave me that bicycle. You know, I was just happy. But that bicycle, though, I mean, that bike meant a whole lot to me. That was a lot of time getting up in the morning early, trying to pick up cans before somebody else picked them up. I had like a 2-mile road that I'd ride, and I'd pick up cans and and I'd ask neighbors if they had cans. I mean, all kinds of stuff to pick up cans. But you work for something, it means a lot more to you.
That's right.
You get something given to you for free, you lose the essence of the meaning of what's behind it, you know. So that's a fact for sure. And like they said, I believe right here, he's breaking these people down, you know, and that way they have only the Lord they only have the Lord to rely on. Like I said, if he went there and said, well, I'm God, I'm gonna provide you the straw now. Since Pharaoh won't give it to you, I'm gonna give it to you. Well, don't worry about the bricks. When you wake up in the morning, I'm gonna have 2,000 bricks already made up for you and give you a head start. Well, I mean, he could do that. God could have done that. But he made them labor. He made them work for something. He made them go through the grind of things to rely on him. And sometimes in life, we have to go through those same grinds. We have to go through things to look at it and say, hey, I need to rely on Jesus through this. I can't do this on my own. And that's where he's putting these people at right here, I think. But we've got y'all got any more questions on chapter 5? I know it's a short chapter. Y'all got anything y'all like to talk about on it? We ain't got about 5 minutes left. I hate to jump into chapter 6, but only 5 minutes left.
Well, you was talking about it being easy for him. You know, look at what all he did. He did all the plagues and had a whirlwind following him, you know, keeping them warm at night and cool in the day and all that. And still, Moses gone less than 40 days and he down there whooping them out of golden calf.
Yeah.
Well, if all that would have been easy, they'd probably built the calf at the Red Sea.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't get the power. They didn't, you know, and they still fail just like we all do. But without seeing that, you know, we look at them back like, boy, what a bunch of whiners.
Right.
I do it all the time. That's a whiner. There's a bunch of people.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I'd been Moses, I'd have whooped them with that stick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Like I say, it's easy for us to read this and go back and go, man, if I'd been there, I'd done this, done that, you know. It's easy to look back because we got the answers to things, but this is all taking place as this is going. You know, this is all happening live. I mean, this is like our life, you know. We could take a camera and film every minute, and you'd see how you'd grow from you was born till the end.
yeah.
Well, this is our growth right here. I mean, they're playing a part of that camera that we actually get to go back and look at, you know, through their decision they made, how they grew, how they failed. And that's how we get to build our faith up, by seeing, we got a guide. We're lucky. We're very, very fortunate. We got a guide to go by.
it's real easy to sit back here and just read about this story and say, how in the world could they not believe?
Right.
You know, after all what they just saw out there, all that just happened, I mean, you know, how could they not believe? But you have to look
They
at
just
it.
couldn't quite foresee the future, you know, of all of it. It was happening
You know,
in real
brother,
time, you know, too.
I wrestle with those same questions like that. How in the world could they not believe? 100% without a doubt, no. I truly believe if Jesus had not came when he did, had not been born in, if he was born today, this generation would crucify him again, just would crucify him for sure. With the same hatred, the same unbelief, the same mistrust, the same. And it's astounding to me that all these thousands of years and nothing's changed about them. Few people, unbelievers have never well, I don't say never, but unbelievers just will not accept the bare truth about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ to save us from our sin. And I don't know, some people are just so hard-headed, you can't get it through to them, you can't argue with them, that's the worst thing to do. But I'm just saying that I believe that this generation today, which is us, not the Christian people, but the unbelievers, would crucify Jesus the same as he was done then, if that was a method. And that, to me, that's just mind-boggling. How can they not see, like you said, with all the miracles and all the great things that God did for them? And He's still doing them. And we still got people that don't believe anything. Don't try. They're burning midnight oil trying to prove that there's no way that the Red Sea was parted and all of them people went through. They're burning midnight oil now.
Right.
Trying to prove there's no way the ark's real because it's not big enough and all that kind of stuff. It's endless.
You know, it's a shame. I watched a movie the other day. It's called Exodus Revealed, I believe.
I think I've got that.
And they showed the things under it wasn't the Red Sea, it's the red part of the Red Sea, but they call it something else today. But it's where they believe Israel actually crossed.
Yeah.
And there are structures, I don't want to call them structures, but you think of a chariot that they had back then,
Yes.
the structure back then.
There were 600 of them, I think.
You have coral growing on these things that are the wooden and iron things that if you look at them and you take metal detectors and everything, you see the metal. You know, they showed it right there on where they found the metal and everything. And they turn at right angles. Coral doesn't grow at right angles unless it has something, whatever it's growing on. And it doesn't grow on the sand, you know, it grows on the wood or the metal or whatever. And you can see the round wheel, the spokes and everything. There's no coral in between the spokes. And you know, this is after 4,000 years, and what is left of what these chariots down there, at least I believe they're chariots. I can't guarantee you that's what they are. That's what I believe. And people will still not believe
Right.
that Pharaoh was, killed when the walls of the water came back down.
I think I'm just as bad as those Jewish people, though. You know, because I sit down in my chair and get all comfortable and think, man, I hate to get up and go to church. Or I'll meet somebody and I could be a little nice to them, then nicer, or have a little more time I could have spent saying that about God. And it's like Brother Boss said, look what He's done for me. Every breath, all the shirt. I was able to get in a nice car and come down here and sit in the air conditioner bill. And I got all of that stuff. I got what they had. I got a whirlwind follows me in the day called air conditioner, and I got something to keep me warm at night. And He just blessed us so much. And then when we don't do something for Him, I'm as big a dog as any one of them.
Sure, I get it.
I ain't smashing an idol, but I watch TV a lot when I probably ought not. We're just seeing it a different view is all. Humans we just take stuff for granted. I do. I'm not
born.
Just the same situation, just a different age.
It is. Just like you said a while ago about those people over there. I mean, look what it takes for them just to sit down and even congregate in a tent and talk about God. And look how easy we got it.
It is.
And we still don't go or
Yeah, we don't
don't do like we're
take a lot of things for granted.
You'd be surprised if you actually heard everything that is happening in Iran, and because I've seen stories of men who say that Jesus appeared to them today in Iran, and there's been a lot of things like that happening in Iran. There's been a lot of revival in Iran. There's a whole lot more Christians in Iran than you hear about. But they're coming now. They're waking up. I read a story the other day. There were two of their TV newscasters that broadcast for state-run TV. That's all they have over there. They quit their jobs and said, I'm sorry, I have lied to you for 21 years. And, you know, that is amazing simply because they've taken their lives in their own hands just simply by admitting that. Because the ones in charge will kill them. The people who shot down the plane, the ones they said actually shot down the civilian plane, they've arrested them now. They thrown them in prison. And they've got, you talking about pastors, they got 3 or 4 Christian pastors in prison over
Yeah, I
there
know
for
about
preaching.
that. Well, China's got 2, I think, right
Yeah,
now.
there's no telling. China does, and, yeah.
They've got
North Korea is the worst.
They've got hundreds of thousands of Muslims in prison camps.
Well, I got one thing I didn't say on here real quick. I didn't read chapter 22, verse 22 and 23 on here. But that's when Moses, he returned to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you brought harm to the people? Why did you ever send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done harm to this people. And you have not delivered your people at all." So Moses does come back at the end of this chapter here, and he has compassion for his people.
Sounds like a little doubt in there.
He questions the Lord about why he was sent.
Yeah.
Why am I here to do this? I'm seeing all my people getting beat, they're having to work twice as hard. Why, Lord? You know, it goes back to kind of what y'all were just talking about. He saw the miraculous signs in previous chapters here about the stick, the snake, the leprosy on the arm. He sees all this stuff happening. He knows God's voice. He's heard it. But yet, when these things start taking place, doubt enters his mind. And he has compassion for his people. And it's easy for us to do that. You know, when we're in a situation, we ask why a lot of times. You know, why me, Lord? Why am I having to go through this? I mean, why this, why that? You know, we do it all the time. But just like I said earlier, we got to remember we got to stay focused on God's plan. Realize who He is. We know Pharaoh didn't know him. We know who he is. We got to realize all the miracles that he's done, even sleeping through a storm. You know, like Troy said, we could have laid down and went to sleep tonight and we'd been okay, but of course we had to doubt him, wake him up. You know, we do that. That's human nature of us. The thing that I can leave you guys with tonight is stay close to God. We have them out, like I've said before, even preaching up here on Sunday mornings in the past. We've got something to look back to. We can see all his signs, all his miraculous wonders right here. We can see them in the Bible, and we can see them in our daily life as we go through it. But the main thing we have to do is realize that we're going to have tough days. We just got to rely more on him through those. What do you got, Jim?
Instead of saying, "Why me, Lord?" we need to be saying, "Thank you, Lord."
Thank you, Lord.
Absolutely.
Right.
He's building that faith up. He's building us that dependence on him on things.
Randy, I do want to mention that, pray for Laura Hill, Kenneth Field's wife.
Okay.
She's had pneumonia and the flu, and,
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. You said, "Pray for me, please."
yeah, she's had pneumonia and the flu. She was in the hospital when Kenneth talked to James, about a week or so ago.
Sometime last week,
Yeah,
Is
so-
that when you voted for it?
I had pneumonia about 3 years ago, and that's some rough stuff to get over. And if I had the flu and pneumonia, I probably would have just,
Right. I Miss Patsy was talking about her. She had pneumonia a while back.
Brother, the hospital called, I don't want to alarm anybody, but the hospital called me tonight about that little volunteer job. Said, "Can you prove that you got a flu shot?" I said, "Well, no. I just happened to be in Walmart one day and they had free flu shots, I got one."
But they gave you a paper.
No, well, if it did, I didn't stick it in my pocket or whatever. I didn't know I needed to. But anyway, she said, "If you don't get that paper, you can't volunteer anymore." I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "There's been a 64% increase in death from the flu."
Yeah.
This flu going around.
It
right
is
now.
bad, boy,
It is
I'm
bad.
telling you. But anyway, I finally got it. I went back to Walmart, got a copy of that flu shot. But that's how serious it's getting.
Right.
That, I mean, they're gonna run off a volunteer that's working for nothing.
Fire you.
That's
Fire to make you pay back what you.
Yeah.
But they didn't pay.
I thank you guys for coming tonight for
Oh, yeah,
study.
pleasure.
I appreciate y'all being attentive and asking the questions that you have. And like I said, Pastor Gary, he'll be back next week, and we'll be on chapter 6.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
I think we ought to pray for America too, President Trump.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we definitely need to keep our country in prayer.
Well, I'm afraid them Democrats is up to something low down and dirty on this witness.
And then
I know, and I can't believe they'll even think about trusting them about anything.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna ask Brother Sam to pray for us, and then we can exit out here tonight. I appreciate
Amen.
y'all's time. Brother Sam?
Father, once again, we do want to thank you for Brother Randy being willing to come and take a preacher's place whenever he's not able to be here, filling in. Just ask you to bless him in a special way. Just thank you for each and every one that's put forth the effort to come out here this evening. Pray that every one of us has received something from hearing your word. We know we have, Lord. We come here for that purpose. We just ask you to bless and meet everyone's need that's on this prayer list. You know who they are. You know the ones that might have been mentioned even this evening. Lord, you know each and every one of them, what their needs are. We just thank you for Brother John's wife having safe delivery during this time of childbirth.
Amen.
We just ask you to bless them, let the child grow, help them be able to raise it for your honor and glory. Forgive us where we fail you, be with us as we go separate ways. Ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, brother,